lot of times the worst looking uses of force are actually the ones where the police responded with too little force. Maybe they pull a gun, maybe they don't pull a gun on you, maybe you think they're gonna pull a gun on you. But the response that your body has physiologically can be the same, just based on your perception, right? I realized that I was enjoying other things more than actually the police work.
What was your wife's reaction when you said you wanted to pivot careers?
I thought she's just up all the time and she's just the type of person that suffers from insomnia. She wasn't sleeping well because she's worried. And nervous and anxious about me all the time. As soon as I changed careers, I mean, she sleeps like a baby all of a sudden.
What's something that I think people just don't understand about being a cop? Everyone, welcome back to the Dylan England Show. I have a good friend, a client.
Hope so. Yeah, definitely client.
Definitely. We'll see about the friend part. Catholic, so we gotta talk about that. No, a good friend. We've connected on our love for theology, politics, business.
Yep.
I still remember, and to give context on who Brandon is really quick, Brandon's an amazing lawyer, partner in his own law firm. What's the name? Really?
Fausone Grysko.
I can't remember I always call it the Grysko law firm, but I know that
that's
there's
funny
other partner.
For so many years, people just would call it the Fausone.
Well, I don't know your partner.
Yeah. That's okay. So, Fausone and Grysko.
Fausone and Grysko law firm, that I humbly refer to as the Grysko Show law firm. Your story is incredible. Policeman, now lawyer. We're gonna get into that, but Brandon's one of the best at what he does, and you have an amazing podcast that's had amazing traction in the local market.
Thank you.
Actually, I was looking, one of our top viewed podcasters.
Really?
You are. Yes.
No kidding.
Because I think your local content is what is separating yourself from the pack, and I think people are really appreciating that.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
Which is that you don't really see much local journalism anymore. So I think people are sort of starved for local content.
Yes.
And when they see something, especially some controversial things that we've covered on the podcast, which is Unlocking the Law, if anybody wanted to know.
Subscribe.
That's right.
I'm pointing the camera.
Oh, sorry.
Like what? Brandon's not used to this.
So yes, Unlocking the Law with Brandon Grysko. Yeah, subscribe. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, so local content, people just are really starved for it. And so the best performing episodes have by far been the
local stuff
that cover the local stuff. Yeah.
And it's been great interviews, really good stuff. You do a good job facilitating conversations. So it's been
I appreciate
really fun editing and distributing that stuff.
Well, I try.
It's a breath of fresh air.
To me, it's like, hey, look, we're going to do one take. We're just going to roll through it. Whatever the producers and editors catch, they catch. What they don't, they don't. And just lay it all out on the line.
And I think people can tell, and it's good. And people know it comes from a place of authenticity of like, hey, like we're just going to have good conversations. And
I do try to give the guests like somewhat of an outline, or at least a topical, sort of outline of what we're going to talk about. But by and large, it's not scripted. I mean, it's very much, hey, do you want to come talk about these couple of things? And then they'll show up and just I don't even know what they're going to say. So
and then there's been some bangers.
Yeah.
So anyway, great. Now you're policeman, now a lawyer, now a podcaster. You're adding the things to your resume. But yeah, we connected over our love for this. I remember our first breakfast ever.
Marco's in Redford.
Yeah. Stuck out.
Yeah.
And I remember, I asked, I was doing Aflac insurance at the time, hated my life, just kidding. And we sat down for breakfast, and I remember asking you, why are you laughing?
No, just kidding.
It's not my favorite. Grateful for it. Don't sue me, just kidding. And so I sat down for breakfast and I was like, hey man, what are some of your hobbies? And I'm normally, when I ask that question to start conversation, people are like, golf, sports.
Right.
And you said theology.
Oh man.
That was literally what and I was like, I've never met with someone, and then we just talked and we debated, and now we just give each other crap. It's been great.
It probably annoys my wife to no end. I know it does, but like it's a significant pastime, I suppose you could say, of just like watching hours of content on YouTube, and like pretty much everything I read in my spare time that's not law related is somehow related either to philosophy or to faith of some variety. So yeah, it's a good time. It is good. It's a fun pastime, and I'm just intellectually very curious about those sorts of things. So.
Yeah. And my favorite part in our relationship is the fact that we give crap to each other.
Yeah.
It's like the best.
Sure.
It's I tell people all the time when you sent me the text with the picture of the book. It's my favorite.
When you're part of like the one holy Catholic apostolic church founded by Jesus himself, it's really hard to be on the outside of that into it, I imagine. So I suppose that's a little FOMO.
There's a little FOMO for me wanting to be in the club, We just, don't need a pope. We have Christ. So it's fine. It's okay. Like we don't need a human to mediate for us. It's okay though. And so you sent me a picture once, and it was a picture of a book, and it was like how to let your friend know he's a heretic, or how to let
man. And I don't even remember that. That sounds like something I would do. Crying,
laughing. He's like, how to let your friend know he's a, I think it was like how to let your friend know he's a. And so anyway, I tell people all the time like that we just, some of my best relationships, like Matt Derry's another one where Matt Derry's on the other end of the political spectrum that I am, but actually our relationship was founded deeply in our disagreements in politics that has allowed us to become friends. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that's actually what should be happening way more of.
I look at it like this. I think you're a person of goodwill. I think I am too. We're both searching for truth. We've found what we think are different solutions to that, but there's no reason why that would mean that we can't be friends or that we can't discuss these things cordially. And we're grounded in.
I've only punched you like 4 times.
Yeah. It's fine. I won that fight, by the way, but that's fine. We're grounded in faith and love of Jesus, and it's like, okay, well,
let's hash it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the best relationships. Right. And the people that you feel comfortable making those are good people. Like it's just,
it's a very nice, it's very relieving, like not to feel, I don't like feel the pressure. Obviously we'd love if everybody just became Catholic and all that. But when I'm hanging out with guys like you or other people, we're able to do this. Yeah. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to set my example. I have my reasons for what I believe. I'm not like a hard sale guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's not my job to be here selling you on Catholicism or anything like this. And to the extent that the Holy Spirit is working in the world, I have a great deal of faith and confidence and trust in that power. Yep. And so I think people are going to end up exactly where they're supposed to be.
Yep. And that's a great place to be. Yeah. And then we can get into Calvinism and RSS. Good stuff. But that's not why today.
No. And I'm not a theologian, by the way. So don't ask me any hard questions, please.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm not either. But you've been a fun friend to have and stay in contact with. And I think what's going to be interesting for our listeners today, a lot of people that I interview are entrepreneurs. They're people that have different stories. And a lot of my listeners are 18 to 30. Maybe already entrepreneurs or wanting to be entrepreneurs. And you've taken a very unique path to entrepreneurship. Yeah. You made the jump later in life to kind of help be a lawyer and then now have a firm.
Sure.
And then your journey, you didn't just be 18 to be like, I'm going to go do law school right now.
Right.
So your path is a little different. And I think it's sometimes fun to highlight the different ways people find entrepreneurship. It's not always just go to college or go start some sort of sales career. Like you were a policeman. So I think it'd be fun to get your story. Yeah. Talk through kind of just a high level overview. And then the goal is that our listeners could be like, there are different ways, different paths to either own a business, grow a business, and it's okay to change careers. And
career change is a big part of the story for me.
Let's talk about that. So first off, was the policeman the first thing you did out of college? What got you first to being a cop?
Actually, the story goes a little bit farther back to high school because I guess at some point I decided I was going to be a firefighter, which firemen and policemen are always button heads, but we joke, we love each other. So all the way back in high school, I decided I wanted to be a fireman, which really the onus for that was really all just related to I want to find a job that is like a quote big boy job as fast as I can so that I can move out of my parents' house so that I can do what I want to do. So it was really grounded a lot in selfishness and sort of like rebellion and wanting to sort of just be off doing my own thing, which is a whole nother side of things that, we don't have to get into right now. But I was highly motivated. And so I did dual enroll as a senior in high school. I dual enrolled in the Schoolcraft College emergency medical technology program. So for like the latter half of my senior year, I was actually studying to be an emergency medical technician. So by the time I graduated, I think once we got to probably like October following my graduation, I was a state licensed emergency medical technician. And then I spent some time working in restaurants. And ultimately, while I was in undergrad, I started working almost full time for a private ambulance company that at the time was based in Redford.
Got it. And then when did you make the decision that you wanted to pivot and pursue being a policeman?
I liked what I was doing. Private EMS doesn't pay a lot. And at the time, this would have been the early kind of 2010, well, a little bit before that, I suppose. But private EMS wasn't paying a lot. And there were not a ton of firefighting jobs available.
Sure.
So I was applying up in the UP. I was applying for paid on call positions just to try and maybe go through the fire academy paid for by the government and then get some at least paid on call experience. I had a girl who I dated for a while, had a brother who was paid on call, I think for Novi. So, I was kind of thinking about like, well, maybe that's a good way to get some experience. I tested out in Annapolis, Maryland. Me and my dad drove out there. And actually, while we were out in Annapolis, I took the written test. We stayed in a hotel overnight, and we went out to dinner one night. And my dad, who was a sheriff with one of the county sheriff's departments, said, sometimes it's easier to find a job as a cop. So if you're into public safety, and if you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer, which is kind of, he always saw me doing something more like that, so I don't know that he really wanted me to be a policeman in the first place, but he said, if you do want to do this public safety related, think about testing for a cop job somewhere, because a lot of times nowadays they're doing more kind of mass hirings. And coincidentally, when I was at Madonna University studying like fire science type stuff, I had to take a class within like the social science family in order to graduate. So I took a criminal justice class, and I really liked the introductory criminal justice class. So that combined with sort of my dad's career, his career trajectory, he was very successful at the sheriff's department. And sort of the I guess you could say the mentorship or the guidance that he gave me while we were on that trip sort of drove me towards, okay, maybe I should think about being a cop instead.
And how long were you a cop before you pivoted to being a lawyer?
About 7 years-ish. Yeah, I spent a little time as a cadet and then went to the academy, was a sworn officer for 6-7 years probably.
Wow.
And while I was still working at the police department, I did like night school and stuff like that to be a lawyer.
What's a misconception that people, like, you've been a cop in the news, it's like cool to either hate cops or cool to love cops. It's like, there's like not even in between anymore. It's either you have to support the blue or you have to hate the blue.
Right.
Like, what's something that I think people just don't understand about being a cop, and maybe like some misunderstandings that people have? I
would say the thing that is probably the most unknown to people is how the body, and I'm not I'm a doctor or physiologist or an expert in this regard, but how does the body respond to extreme stress? Extreme, you get the adrenaline dump. Somebody, maybe they pull a gun, maybe they don't pull a gun on you. Maybe you think they're going to pull a gun on you. But the response that your body has physiologically can be the same just based on your perception, right? So, you get tunnel vision, you have auditory exclusion, so you can't hear the same. You have a loss of fine motor skills, right? So you're not able to manipulate things in the same way. And all those sorts of things contribute significantly to when you see a police incident, whether it's a use of force or even if it's just a high stress encounter. A lot of people, I think, are not taking into account just the massive physiological changes that are going on in the officer's body and in their perception when those things are happening. I think that is really crucial for people to understand. Whether you're, I don't think anybody really is truly anti-police. I think they're just sort of anti-police doing certain things.
Sure.
So I think I wish more people understood that.
Yeah.
I would say.
Because it's easy to hate on the situation until you've actually experienced it. And it's be like, well, if I would never do this. And what you were saying, it's like, well, I mean, a lot of times there's, I think, Mike the cop, right? Yeah. So he came on the podcast like a year or two ago, and we were talking about.
Great dude.
Yeah, I love Mike.
He was one of my police academy instructors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in the cadre for like the PT stuff.
Yeah, that's my guy. We were talking about there are bad cops that do bad things, but there are good cops that also just do bad things in the bad moment because of the stress and whatever. And what he was trying to say is people need to understand that there are actually bad people that we need to get out of the police force. Like they're ego hungry.
100%.
They're there for the wrong reasons. But when we don't have anyone lining up to be a cop because it's uncool to be a cop, it's really hard. Like sometimes you just need to find people. So that's the first problem is you need a way better batch of people applying to be a cop so that you can get better people in there. But secondly, he was like, there's also just like a lot of the bad cops ruin it for the good cops because there's a lot of good people trying to do what's right. And like they may make one bad call or one bad decision. And because of all of the other things, they get looped into this group of people when they're actually just a great dude that just was, like you said, in a really stressful environment that happened to maybe make the wrong choice. Yeah. And so I always find it interesting because I always wondered from your perspective, like, there's tons of cop hate. Like, what do you think cops could do better? And then what do people just need to understand better? Like, do people just need to have more grace and understand like these are humans too? Or are there actual legit bad people that need to get weeded out? Like, is there a little bit of both?
Well, there's definitely a little bit of both. I mean, there's certainly people that are in any profession probably that shouldn't be there. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's clear. So I don't have any problem with weeding out the bad ones. Right. I think one of the, and I'm, my cop buddies are going to yell at me for this one, but one of the top risk managers for police was a guy who used to be a cop, and he became, I think he was a homicide detective, became a lawyer and has like a risk management group that does training for law enforcement and things like that. From the liability perspective, he actually says that, we do enough training. We have enough policies. What we need to do is enforce our policies. We need consistent discipline associated with our policies, right? That's the best way to avoid liability. And at the time that I was with the police department, I was a union guy. I was on the union board. I was on the executive committee. So we took part in negotiating contracts and dealing with discipline and stuff like that. And at the time that really kind of irked me a lot. Yeah. But now being a lawyer and representing municipalities and sometimes representing them in the context of police liability issues, you can really see where that plays into it. It's no different, honestly, than in some cases, like you'll have companies, they've got an employee who's kind of a problem, right? But then you go back and look in the file, and it's just like all these glowing HR reviews that they have. Every year they get a positive review, and then you fire them. They sue you for like race or sex discrimination or something like that. And you're like, well, they were a bad employee. It didn't have anything to do with their race. I fired them because of this other thing. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What is the file show? Yeah. And so you get that same kind of dynamic, right, with cops, where if you're not consistently enforcing your discipline, when you get sued, you don't have a file to be able to say, look, not only do we have the policies, but we also have the receipts to show that we stick to our policies. And so I think maybe that's something that we ought to think about a little bit more, with respect to law enforcement, is how are we holding people accountable to the policies while understanding that it's not static, it's sort of a developing, rapidly evolving situation.
Yeah, well, because one of the things that Mike mentioned is like, people really struggle with like almost like two things can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes we have to be so, like people want to be so like, they did a bad thing, they're a bad, evil person, or maybe they're a good person that actually does maybe have glowing reviews that made one mistake. Sure. And it's not like they have and so I think from what I'm hearing you say is like from a police perspective, one of the things that can be done better is holding accountable, keeping consistent to what they said they're going to do. But then what would you tell the public? You mentioned that people don't understand the physiological stress.
I think that's part of it.
And what else would you tell the public when it comes to just like how should they view policemen and how can they help?
I mean, I think just honest reflection for starters of even if you're in the defund the police camp, you're going to call the police if there's crime in your neighborhood.
Right.
If there's a domestic violence situation, if somebody's breaking into your house, like you are going to call the police. So I don't think it's genuine to say that like defund the police, right? I think that there may be resource allocation within the department that you want to do. To the extent your complaint is that we don't have enough social workers in the police department, or we don't have this or that, that all actually requires more funding, not less funding.
Yeah.
Right. So I think just an honest conversation about what it looks like.
Like being intellectually honest.
Yeah, intellectually honest. Like, what does it actually look like to drive the change that you're thinking about? When the thought behind defund the police, what does it look like to drive that change? And my guess is that 100% of the time it's going to cost some amount of money in order to make that change.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to defund the police. You maybe want to fund them differently, which I think is a conversation we can have.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, even just thinking through, like, a lot of times when you think of defund the police, it's because of, someone believes that someone did police brutality or whatever. It's like, cool. If you, in my opinion, this is a Dylan England-E's opinion, if you want change, like, why don't we pay our cops even more to make it an incentive job that people want to take? And we're not just, seemingly to me, there's two people that become cops. They do it for the right reasons. They're like, I want to help people. I want to make a difference. Or they kind of have an ego trip problem and they think it'll stroke that. Yeah. Because the pay's okay, but it's not great. For the stress that you guys endure, you guys probably should get paid significantly more. And if my opinion is, if you fund more, you could potentially have a way better quality of recruiting that then you could, when someone does something bad, you could say, hey, we don't need you at the force anymore. But when you don't have anyone coming in the door as recruits, you kind of have to keep the bad apples because you gotta.
It's tough. I mean, you can't. I don't think you can legitimately say, well, we have to keep this guy or gal simply because we need a warm body in the seat. I don't think this is the profession that you can do that. I think if you have a bad secretary, at the office job or something like that, let's just keep a warm body in the seat. Maybe that works there. I don't think it works in law enforcement because you're sworn to an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution, and there's just some things that you may do, or some situations you might get in that you just can't recover from. And I think that person needs to go regardless of sort of the staffing needs.
Yeah, I feel like we could just talk about this because it's interesting.
I mean, we could go for an hour. 2 hours, whatever, on this topic.
Because it's good. And I think what I'm hearing, and the kind of takeaway, because I want to move into the next part in your story, is people need to have more grace. Sometimes take a moment back and actually, if you are on the defund the police side, actually just be intellectually honest on what you actually want. Like, what is the outcome you want? Yeah. And then probably is not actually defund the police. It's probably something different. And then make push for that. Yeah. And I have kind of maybe just like a closing thought on that. If you want to move on, but I think the other component of this is that when you are looking at a use of force situation, a lot of times the worst looking uses of force are actually the ones where the police responded with too little force. And so what you do is you end up kind of grabbing and muscling back and forth with somebody and they're shouting and now somebody sees and they're recording and it kind of turns into this goat rodeo, right? Whereas if you very quickly dropped a knee strike into somebody's common peroneal nerve, which is on like the outside of the thigh, took them down to the ground into a handcuffing position and just locked them up, it may look in that snapshot of an instant to be a more aggressive response, and it is, but it also ends the encounter much more quickly. Yeah, with less chance of harm, less chance of escalation. I think that's right. So I think that is another component that is, and so I think the public just not generally understanding probably the training and the policy development that goes into what does a police use of force look like and why is it that way? And maybe that's something the police don't do a good enough job of communicating perhaps. But the other component of this that I found great success with in my short career as a police officer was just the interpersonal skills of like talking to people. Yeah. You see this occasionally where like the cop pulls somebody over
walks up to the window of the car, and then they get into this like back and forth of, give me your license, registration, proof of insurance. And the person goes, why'd you stop me? And the cop says, give me your license, registration, proof of insurance, and then I'll tell you. You know what I mean? And the person says, no, you tell me first, and you just get into this kind of stupid back and forth where, so at the department that I worked for, we had a procedure of you walked up to the car, you said, I'm Officer Grysko with the such and such police department. The reason I stopped you today is this. I need your license, registration, proof of insurance. You've sacrificed nothing. Right? You've sacrificed nothing, but you've taken the wind out of their sails. They may still refuse to identify themselves, in which case that takes things in a different direction.
Correct.
Right? But off my soapbox.
I've been, dude, sometimes I'll be like on Instagram or whatever, and I'll just go down this like rabbit hole of like, either cops that are just like unhinged and like this, this person is like actually being comment, and they make like one snide comment, and then the cop just like throws them in handcuffs, and then the superior shows up. It's like, you can't do that. And then like I sometimes watch those like occasionally bad apple stories, but then a lot of times what also drives me nuts, because I'm a very big like pro police guy. Awesome. What also drives me nuts are the people that are just difficult for no reason.
Sure.
So like I don't know if I should say this on the air, but I've gotten pulled over like 4 times and I have 0 speeding tickets.
Sure.
Because every single time I'm like, I have everything in my hand. I have my light, I have my registration. So I roll in the window, and then I've never had someone tell me why they've pulled me over, which I would appreciate. But they always say, sir, do you know why we pulled you over today? And I've been told never to incriminate myself. So I don't know if that's true or not. So what I always do is like, I'm not sure, like what's going on. And I'll have all the papers for them. And then I got pulled over for going like, I thought it was 55. It was a county road. It was 55 miles an hour. I thought it was 55 because normally I grew up in Ohio. All of our back county roads are 55 miles an hour. Sure. All of them. Apparently in like Saline, it's 45. Stupid. Why? I don't know. Dumb rule. So I'm going like 58, which is 3 miles over what I think the speed limit is. But it's, whatever, 13 miles, 14 miles over the actual speed limit. Right. So I'm just cruising. I'm not trying to speed. I'm just like chilling. I'm like literally going 3 miles over what I think speed limit is. And then the sheriff, I see lights behind me. I'm like, what, is my taillight out or something? So it was a lady sheriff. She comes, and I'm like, here's all my paperwork. And she's like, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, no, I honestly don't. She's like, what do you think the speed limit here is? And I said, well, I grew up in Ohio, and all the back roads are 55 miles an hour. Like, that's just what I assumed the 55, because I'm like, that's just, she's like, oh, it's 45. And I say, oh, I didn't know that. I'm really sorry. So again, I never said like I was going, and to
be fair, there are numerous roads in Michigan that are unposted that are 55.
Right. And I've always assumed,
right.
And so I think she knew. She's like, yeah. And I was just super like, here's my paperwork, here's everything you need. Looked at my record, and then I got out of the ticket. She's like, hey, I get it. This is just a road. And she was great. She was super. It was a great conversation. My wife though has been, I'm going to incriminate her. She has never gotten out of a ticket. Like, and so
we won't speculate as to why that might be.
Yeah. She's just, I don't know what. And so she, when we got married, she had gotten pulled over it was still on her record. So we were paying more insurance. And then she got another ticket, and then they let her take a course and get it expunged or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But it was when I've gotten out of 3 or 4, and now she gets mad.
You're just a friendly guy, Dylan.
I don't know, dude. But she gets mad. So I call her. I'm like, hey, I got pulled over. She's like, did you get a ticket? I was like, no. She's like, you didn't get a ticket. No, she wants me to get a ticket because I've gotten out of so many. Yeah. So I don't know. But one of them, I was on my way to meet my pastor for breakfast. I got pulled over in Allen Park. That guy was really nice. The only bad cop situation I had was in Ferndale. That guy was a royal D-bag, dude. There's this, so it's like in a neighborhood. So I'm driving from Oak Park to Ferndale to Snap Fitness that's there. The way that you could go down like 9 Mile or whatever and get all the lights, so that we just take the neighborhood path through the streets. Right. So you drive to a stop sign, you turn right, and then you turn the first left and you go to Snap. I did that for a year. Like, everyone did it. Well, apparently the owners got mad at people using this as a shortcut because there's so much traffic. Right. So the government, in their glorious endeavors, put a sign that says no left turn behind a bush. So keep in mind, people have been taking this path for years. Right. They put a sign hidden. I took a picture and sent it to the courthouse. I was like, this is your sign? So I'm going 25 miles an hour, get pulled over by a Ferndale cop. The guy was just immediately aggressive.
Sure.
And he was just like, license registration.
Right.
And I was like, sir, why are you pulling me over?
Right.
He's like, license registration. I was like, I'm not in the mood. Like, just tell me why you're pulling me over. He's like, do you have a problem? I was like, yes, we have a problem because I don't know why you're pulling me over. And so he gave me a ticket for, I don't know what it was called, like whatever the ticket is for turning where you're not supposed to.
Yeah. Prohibited.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I had to pay $200. But I called the court and I was like, or the court, or whatever they told me to call. I was like, that guy was a turd. And that's been my only bad cop impersonation.
You know what, though? I mean, all things considered, he was unpleasant and maybe even rude or whatever, but, you know.
Yeah.
A light beating.
It was fine. What it could have been. Yeah, right, for sure. Yeah, but then he's like, you can't turn left here. And so eventually he told me, I was like, since when? Like, we've been doing, it's one of those things when you get in a habit. And he's like, there's a sign there. And I was like, and so like, I literally like pointed to him, like the one that's behind the bush. He's like, yeah, well, it's there.
Well, you obviously saw it if you could point to it.
I just saw that there was a sign.
Just kidding.
Anyway, that's my cop stories. Love them. And so, dude, back to you. I don't know how I got on that story. Funny. When at your point in your career did you say, you know what? I'm 7 years in, 8 years in, 6 years in. Do I want to change paths?
Yeah, it actually happened a lot sooner than when I was 7 years in. But law school was always kind of something I had in the back of my mind. I think at some point in time, I probably thought that I wanted to use my law degree to get promoted up through the ranks, maybe be like chief someday or something like that. I would say probably after, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years on the road as a police officer, there were two things that happened. Number one is I met my wife. And I was doing...
Shout out the wife.
Yeah, shout out to Bridget. Love her.
The best.
Yeah, she is. So I met my wife. We were dating. And I was starting to miss out on some things happening after hours because I was working midnights. So I was asleep a lot of times. And I was having to work weekends and holidays and different things like that. And so the shift work and the lifestyle associated with that was a big component of it. The other thing was that at the time, the department I was at had since the 90s gotten rid of their defined benefit pension plan. And so so what we had was it's in the public sector. It's not called the 401k. I think it's a 401a or something like that. But it was a 401 style of plan for retirement. And so there was no like, hey, if I work for 25 years or 30 years and then retire, I'm going to have some guaranteed annual payment for the rest of my life kind of thing, which is what public safety has historically been. So those two things combined, I was sort of like, well, there's really not a great reason for me to stick around long term, right? Based on the retirement situation and then based on the fact that I was starting to miss out on some things. And then the other piece of it was that I realized that I was enjoying other things more than actually the police work. So being on the union board and stuff like that, I was starting to enjoy, dealing with the contract and dealing with employee discipline issues and things of that nature. And already, was thinking about law school. And those are all things that union reps do, of course, but lawyers kind of deal with some of that stuff too. So I started thinking like, hey, well, maybe it's actually a better idea to go that route instead of using it to promote within the department. I'll kind of go, I have my 401 contributions that I can sort of take with me. I'll have maybe some more time with the family and I'll be able to do more of what I like and less of what I don't.
What was your wife's reaction when you said you wanted to pivot careers?
Well, she was into it. She was always really concerned about the safety aspect of it. So
she's like, hey, you're not going to get shot at?
Yeah. She was super into it. I mean, when we got married, I was working midnights and swing shift and everything else. I actually thought that just as a person, she didn't sleep well. I thought she's just up all the time and she's just the type of person that suffers from insomnia. But as soon as I changed careers, I mean, she sleeps like a baby all of a sudden. And so I didn't realize, maybe our communication, it says something about our communication, but I didn't realize that she wasn't sleeping well because she's worried and nervous and anxious about me all the time. So
she loves you.
I know.
That's great.
She does.
That's great. What's some lessons that you've learned from being a lawyer that what's harder than you thought it was going to be? And then what's easier than you thought it was going to be? Like what's the journey like? And then answer that, and then
Yeah, no, that's okay. I would say from the ownership side of things, being a lawyer is great. It's like the actual business stuff that I didn't really anticipate. And actually, I never necessarily went into this expecting to be in a business owner kind of thing, right? So that wasn't really in the cards for me. I mean, I wasn't opposed to it, but I didn't really plan on it necessarily. So all the business stuff, the numbers, cash flow, marketing budget, dealing with personnel issues, office drama, never thought a thing about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that stuff has been things that I've had to learn on the fly. Actually, a lot of it I've picked up from Jim Fausone. So huge props to him for his mentorship and his guidance over the years. But also just from being like a business attorney, you do a lot with clients and you get to learn about their businesses and you view their financials in some cases. And so I've actually learned a lot just from providing business legal advice, learned a lot about sort of the business end of running a law firm too.
So that's been hardest, but it's also been sounds like one of your more growing areas that you've had to grow as being a business owner, not just a lawyer.
And I think that's where a lot of lawyers that are in business struggle is because they're just running it.
They want to practice law.
They're running it like an employee, right? They're thinking of themselves as just a lawyer, which isn't a bad thing. But you've got to view yourself as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and pay attention to all those things that you wouldn't, as an employee, so to speak, you wouldn't normally be paying attention to.
What do you love about what you do?
What I love about what I do is the practical approach that we take to helping clients, helping them see the light when they're in a situation where they can't see the path forward, right? Giving that practical advice, because it's really easy to jump straight to, hey, we're going to take this issue and we're going to run into court and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, congratulations. You just selected the most expensive option that is going to create the most disruption in your life and the highest degree of emotional dysregulation.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we, in a way that's more practical and more business friendly, how do we provide advice that works for you and your situation, not just given the legalities of the situation, but the economic realities? Maybe there's a disparity in bargaining power between you and the other side. And so you can't come in and get your way on all your terms and conditions, right? Because you're negotiating with Ford Motor Company or with, some big tech company,
check.
Right? Yeah. Some big tech company out of Silicon Valley or something like that, right? Where they get to set the terms, and you have an opportunity to get like maybe between 1 and 5 things that favor your side on this contract negotiation, right? Or maybe you have an opportunity to settle the 1 or 2 most important things pre-litigation, right? That's going to save you from having to spend $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in attorney fees. And it's maybe not your ideal situation, but it's something you can live with and it's going to work either for your business or personally kind of going forward. And that's kind of the pride I take in my approach, is helping people navigate those situations, taking into account not just the law, but also sort of the practical.
The business too.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a professional problem solver.
100%. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Who do you enjoy working with? Like if someone's listening to this podcast, like how do they know to give you a call?
I most enjoy working with clients where I get to know them personally, get to know their business sort of in an ongoing fashion. So there are a lot of one-off transactions that we do. So like you want to buy this company or you want to sell this company, those sorts of things. We do a lot of that type of work, and it's good and it's satisfying and it's fulfilling in its own way. But there's just nothing like having a client and you're their attorney, you're their trusted advisor that they turn to with the problems that they have in their business. And some of those relationships, quite frankly, are not necessarily the most profitable because they may only call you once every so often. Right. But it's the relationship aspect of it that I enjoy the most. It's the feeling, my sense of fulfillment in that situation comes from the fact that we have sort of a mutual relationship of shared value. Right.
And so you're looking for people that would enjoy working with you that are business owners, generally, or people that need business law advice, or they have a problem. And then also like where you shine, I think when people think of law in their head, it's very transactional.
Yes.
But what you're saying is what you guys do is you kind of install the relationships into a transactional space.
Right.
And so if somebody's looking for a deeper relationship with a lawyer, not just someone to be like, file this contract this way,
Right.
You're a great call.
Yeah, I want to be the person that you call every time you are about to do a big deal or a transaction or hire an employer, fire an employer, whatever. I want to be involved on the front end of that so that I can help save you the heartburn of having not called, right? And then there's a problem down the road. And I think the issue that a lot of businesses will run into is they get a false sense of confidence, a false sense of security. They're using AI contracts. They're not using legal before they hire and fire people. They're not using legal to review terms and conditions, and everything's fine. And it works out great. And everything's just sailing along.
Until.
And that thing happens now. And it's like, hey, what's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure or something like that. Some saying like that, right? And so now you're in it and you've got to deal with the situation. But our firm, as a law firm, there's about 10 attorneys or something like that at the firm. Everybody kind of has their own areas of specialization. So we have guys that do complex litigation, right? Business disputes and real estate disputes. We have probate litigator who's been involved in some of the highest profile probate type issues in the state of Michigan, estate planning, municipal law. I do a lot of land use planning, both for the private client side of things and the municipal side of things. So we've got people that do multiple different areas, right? But it's always, to me, my thing, always want to have that relationship, something more than just a one-off transaction. It's great. We do them. But there's just nothing quite as fulfilling as having somebody that starts as a client, becomes a friend.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't know where we were going to go today, and I had a blast.
I don't know where we went today.
And I think it was good. I hope you thought it was good.
The cop stuff is great. We could talk about that sort of forever. It's, it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's
it affects
interesting.
Everybody.
Yes. And who knows? We just need to do a round 2 where we can talk more on the law stuff and the business stuff.
Whatever,
I know we'll keep it going. But I'll tell you what, I think people heard from you today is like Brandon, the real person. And if they want to work with a lawyer that's going to be real and honest, what better person to work with? And so I'm going to encourage you, listener, if you're looking for a law firm in Michigan, particularly, and you want a lawyer that's going to treat you like a person and actually get to know you, not just try to get your money, Brandon Grysko and the Fausone Grysko law firm.
Fausone Grysko.
Fausone Grysko law firm. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It's the Grysko.
That's okay.
Your partner still.
Just Google it.
Yeah, I know.
It'll come up.
They're the people for you. And so I'd encourage you. Your stuff, Brandon's stuff, will be in the description of this video. And if you want to reach out to them, please do so. And follow the Unlocking the Law podcast.
Unlocking the Law.
Because what he does is he takes local amazing stories and highlights them. And if you're interested in what's happening in the local sector in Michigan, especially with some municipalities or some issues and things that like you're probably not gonna get in most news organizations, Unlocking the Law podcast is the place to find those things.
Unlocking the Law, baby.
Love it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks
and
for
thank
having me.
you for listening to this episode of the Dylan England Show. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friend and your mom. As always, see you on the next one. Peace.